Earlier this year, my younger sister, Clara, shared the exciting news of her engagement. Naturally, our family was overjoyed for her. She was set to marry a colleague named Ethan, a kind and genuine man who seemed to truly adore her. However, Ethan wasn't just an ordinary guy. He came from a family of immense wealth. As Clara explained, Ethan's family possessed generational riches, the kind that carried not just luxury but also prestige and tradition. Their world was entirely different from ours, marked by financial struggles that they could never comprehend. Our family's circumstances had always been challenging, the polar opposite of Ethan's privileged background. Our father abandoned us when we were young, leaving our mother to raise Clara and me single-handedly. She worked exhausting hours to provide for our basic needs, often at the expense of her own well-being. Growing up, we knew poverty intimately. There were nights when we went to bed with empty stomachs because money for food was scarce. We didn't own a car, so Mom relied on buses to get to work, returning home drained after long shifts. Despite her fatigue, she never complained, always putting us first. It wasn't until I reached high school that our situation began to stabilize. Mom landed a better-paying job, which eased some of the strain, but years of debt from scraping by lingered. She worked tirelessly to clear it, and even then we were always one unexpected expense away from trouble. When I graduated high school, college seemed out of reach. Mom couldn't afford it. Thankfully, I earned a scholarship that allowed me to move to the city for higher education, lifting a huge weight off her shoulders. Leaving home for college was bittersweet. I was thrilled about the opportunities, but I felt guilty leaving Clara and Mom behind. Clara and I were close, and she missed me when I left. She'd call often, eager to hear about my college life, classes, dorms, and social events. She dreamed of experiencing that freedom herself, yearning to escape the limitations of our small town. When it was Clara's turn for college, Mom had saved enough to help her enroll, but it wasn't enough to cover everything. Unlike me, Clara didn't secure a scholarship, so she worked part-time to manage tuition and other costs. By then, I was employed and began sending money home to support both Mom and Clara, cutting back on my own expenses to ensure they were okay. It wasn't easy, but I wanted Clara to have a chance at her education without overwhelming financial stress. However, college changed Clara. Away from home for the first time, she embraced her newfound freedom, perhaps too much. She dove into a lifestyle of parties, alcohol, and drugs, discovering her ability to charm her way into social circles. She flitted from one relationship to another, caught in a cycle of fleeting romances and heartbreak. Things escalated when Clara got into serious trouble at a wealthy friend's party. The group was using drugs when police arrived after a noise complaint. While others fled, Clara, too intoxicated to escape, was caught and spent a weekend in jail. Since she hadn't used drugs that night and it was her first offense, she was released with community service. Mom was livid, giving Clara a stern lecture that went ignored. I was deeply worried, feeling responsible as her older sibling to steer her back on track. I tried talking to her, urging her to see the danger in her choices, but she brushed me off, insisting she was just enjoying her college years. As time passed, Clara grew more entangled with a reckless crowd, casually using drugs like it was no big deal. After graduating, she had no career prospects and moved into a cheap apartment with friends, working as a waitress. I encouraged her to aim higher, but she showed no ambition. I continued sending her money for rent, feeling I had no choice but to help. One night, I received a panicked call from Clara. Sobbing and disoriented, she admitted she was high and stranded, separated from her friends. My heart raced with fear as I told her to share her location. I drove for hours through the night to find her, finally spotting her at a remote gas station, disheveled and exhausted. She admitted she and her friends often went to isolated spots to use drugs for fun. I was furious and heartbroken, telling her this had to stop. I insisted she go to rehab, threatening to cut off financial support if she refused, which would force her to move back with Mom. Reluctantly, she agreed. Rehab was tough for Clara. She despised it, calling often to vent her frustration and desire to quit. But after a month, she emerged looking healthier, more like the vibrant sister I remembered from childhood. To keep her away from her old influences, I invited her to live with me. She agreed, continuing her job at a cafe while I covered our expenses, rent, bills, groceries, so she could save her earnings. I urged her to seek a more stable job, but she resisted, hating the idea of corporate life and mocking my participation in what she called the grind. She even said she planned to marry wealthy, so she wasn't worried about her future. It was around this time that Clara met Ethan. He came into her cafe for coffee, and their casual chat sparked a connection. Initially unaware of his wealth, Clara later suspected it from his designer clothes and shoes. They started dating, and I noticed she never invited him into our home after dates, always parting ways outside. When I suggested she bring him in, she refused, saying it wasn't necessary. One evening I saw them outside, and Clara looked uneasy when she spotted me. I introduced myself to Ethan, who was polite and friendly, and invited him in for coffee. Clara panicked, quickly declining on his behalf, insisting it was late. Later, she admitted she was ashamed of our modest home, fearing Ethan would judge our poor lifestyle compared to his wealthy world. I was shocked. Our apartment was comfortable and well kept, but she insisted it wasn't enough for someone like Ethan, her way out. I warned her that hiding her true self was wrong and that honesty was crucial for a real relationship, but Clara dismissed me, obsessed with maintaining appearances. When she finally introduced Ethan to Mom and me, only because he insisted on meeting her family, she demanded we present ourselves as well off. She chose an upscale restaurant for the occasion, far beyond our budget, and expected me to cover the bill. Mom secretly helped with the cost, knowing how much it meant to Clara. At dinner, Ethan was charming and unpretentious, making me question Clara's obsession with impressing him. When he offered to pay, Clara quickly refused, emphasizing that we could handle it, reinforcing the illusion of our financial stability. Clara's plan succeeded. Ethan left unaware of our true background, but I was uneasy about her deception. As their relationship grew, Clara seemed thrilled, traveling with Ethan and buying luxury items with his money. When they moved in together, she distanced herself from me, rarely calling despite my support through her toughest times. When Ethan proposed, we learned about it through social media, not from her. Mom tried to congratulate her, but Clara ignored her. Weeks later, she invited us to lunch to discuss the wedding, bragging about Ethan's love and her dream wedding. She shocked us by asking Mom how much she'd saved for the event, assuming we'd cover half the costs. When we explained we couldn't afford it, she grew angry, insisting we contribute to hide our poverty. Reluctantly, Mom and I pooled our savings, dipping into my hard-earned funds to help. During wedding planning, Clara excluded me, not even asking me to be a bridesmaid. The wedding was lavish with hundreds of guests. But at the reception, a staff shortage left guests waiting for drinks. Flustered, Clara asked me to serve, claiming the caterers were understaffed. Stunned, I refused, hurt that after our financial sacrifices, she'd treat me like hired help. She argued that Ethan's wealthy family expected better service, but I stood firm. In a heated moment, fueled by a few drinks, I shouted that our family's struggles didn't make me her servant. I revealed how we'd funded the wedding despite her lack of gratitude, while she lived lavishly off Ethan's wealth. Ethan overheard and approached, concerned. I explained how Clara had asked me to serve after all we'd done. Furious, Clara called me a failure, saying she'd pay me for helping. I snapped back, exposing her lies, her hidden poverty, drug use, arrest, rehab, and reliance on our family before latching onto Ethan. The room fell silent. Ethan, stunned, asked why she'd lied about her past. His parents, overhearing, were outraged, saying they'd never have approved the marriage or funded it had they known about her drug history. Clara tried to explain, but the damage was done. Since the wedding, Ethan has distanced himself, asking Clara to leave his home. She's been living with Mom, who feels I went too far by exposing her, though she sympathizes with my frustration. Both are pressuring me to talk to Ethan and invent a story to save Clara's marriage. Update 1 week later. Clara admitted to Mom that she'd fabricated a story about our family, claiming our father died wealthy, leaving us comfortable to hide our struggles. She feared Ethan wouldn't trust her if she revealed the truth later. Ethan and his family were shocked by my outburst because they believed her lies. I'm meeting Ethan soon to answer his questions honestly. Update 2. I met with Ethan, who was shaken by the wedding events. I shared our family's true history, our hardships and survival. He was stunned to learn Clara lied about luxurious family traditions, vacations, and even attending a prestigious college. He revealed his family's sensitivity to her drug past. His older brother died of an overdose, a loss they still mourn. Betrayed by Clara's deception, Ethan can't trust her and plans to annul the marriage, fearing she might claim his assets without a prenup. Update 3, 5 months later. Ethan and Clara's marriage was annulled. He reimbursed Mom and me for our wedding contributions. Clara, devastated, blames me for ruining her life and has sent me toxic messages, refusing to acknowledge her lies. I've blocked her. After discussions, Mom now understands Clara's deceit and agrees with my actions, no longer blindly supporting her. Clara is jobless, living with Mom and seeking work.